Before we dig into a little bit more about email marketing and like nurturing your list, Raina, I'd love for them to hear a little bit more about you. And like I said in the beginning, you've had a crazy week. Your new website launched this week and it's beautiful. Your podcast is now up. Your second podcast is now up and running. And you said both of them are in what, the top 200?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for you guys joining live and watching the replay. So I'm Raina. If we've never met, I hang out over at Raina & Co. And you might have heard me on the Creative Empire podcast. It's so funny because some people don't know what I look like, but they know my voice, which is hysterical. So if we've hung out there, then that's awesome. I work with creative entrepreneurs who are right brand and heart-centered, really focus on what's most important. And what I love about this topic of nurturing your email list is that I feel like an email is just an extension of your community and an extension of how you love on people. There's a lot of email marketing like gimmicks and tactics and how to get more people on your list. And that's great. And, you know, I call that dude marketing. I mean, it's not specific to just guys, but I really see this a lot with the bigger marketing guys. And I found that you can make sales while making really deep impacts and just relationships with people. So I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you. And I agree. I think that that's funny that you say it's like dude marketing, but I can see that. Like you see a lot of like some of the males specifically that I follow versus females that I follow and how some of their strategies are different. So that's probably a whole nother coffee chat.
It totally is.
Like maybe we should just like keep that one in the back of our mind or down the road. Male, female differences in email marketing strategies. So one of the reasons why I really like selfishly wanted to have a coffee chat around this particular topic is because I feel like service-based providers get stuck with how to start an email list, and then not only how to start the email list, but what do you do with this email list afterward? Because your services only go so far, right? You only for wedding industry people, you only have a certain number of weekends that you can offer, even for coaching, right? The time that you have and the effort that you're putting into every client. So, I'm excited to just kind of start to jump into what does it look like for both of us and for you in particular to nurture that list kind of like all the way through. So tell me what are some of the things you're doing with your email list like right now?
Yeah. So I just want to address one thing really quickly because my list strategy is going to look different than your list strategy if you have a wedding business or anything. So let's just break it down. Can you tell me if you are in here, like, tell me what your business is, tell me a little bit about what your service-based business looks like. And so if you are a B2B like I am, which means business to business, I would communicate differently than if I was B2C, business to consumer, right? And if you are a B2C business, like a wedding planning business, you're not going to get repeat clients, hopefully, right? Like people are not getting remarried.
Right.
Yes. Stay married. Please don't come back to me for wedding planning.
Right.
But you might have different strategies. So that's one thing I just wanted to get right off the bat. And so if I'm talking about something that I'm doing that doesn't actually make sense for you, then just kind of disregard it. But for people who are B2B, it's fun because you get to you have to think about the longevity of your client. It's not just like a one sale and done, right? So we have to think about the length of that relationship, and it's a lifetime for that client. So if you are somebody who wants a repeat customer, you can do, your service, but you can also offer them an upsell or a downsell. You can nurture them and give them a lot of valuable resources. And you have to trust that even if somebody doesn't buy from you immediately once they get on your list, they might buy from you in 2 years. I've had this happen multiple times where somebody is just like interested, curious, they downloaded one thing, and then 2 years later they're downloading all your things. Literally, I find it really funny to see the trajectory of somebody's lifespan on our list. So I hope that answers your first question. But just in terms of, there's a lot of things that happen, and I want to, if you guys are newer on your like newsletter journey or further along, I have a lot of different tips. So let's dive in.
Awesome. I know. It sounds like based on in the chat that a lot of you guys are on the newer end, which is great. And we can absolutely like talk about it from that perspective. And that way you hopefully are getting a lot more of like practical, tangible takeaways versus things that like are feeling a little bit more over your head. And it seems like we kind of have a mixture with some B2B and then
Commission-based
B2C in here.
Artist,
I know, that's
B2B.
awesome.
Yeah. But I think even with Betsy, who is a commission-based artist, you can have conversations to nurture those people to be able to buy, and they're repeat purchasers, right? Rather than just being a one-time kind of gal.
Right.
And then Jess says wedding planner, and then you also have an online business for the creatives collection. Awesome. And we'll talk about segmenting if that is helpful for you too.
Right. Because that was something I was going to bring up even with Jess's, is it is helpful to know your audience, to know who you're emailing to. So for me, like, I'm a wedding planner, but I'm not trying to attract brides on my email list. My email list is strictly for B2B. So I'm going at it from a very different point rather than segmenting out brides versus business owners. I'm focusing solely on business owners. So that's also something, if you're sitting out there thinking like, well, wait, I have like multiple different people I serve, like, what am I doing? You can still do that with the email list. But knowing who's getting what is really helpful. And that way the client on the receiving end isn't getting confused with their emails that they're getting from you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Kat, a while ago, you like differentiated very specifically with your brand, right? You kind of segmented from here's the wedding stuff and here's like the creative stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I did. Yeah. So I felt like for me personally, it was getting lost in translation. Like, I just having one Instagram account, for instance, we all know Instagram, just with having one Instagram account as Dear Sweetheart Events, and then also trying to teach small business owners. And because that was growing rapidly, I felt like it was too hard for me to balance. Well, I still need to offer things to my brides, but now I also want to offer things to small business owners and really start to up level that side of my business. So I branched out and launched a different brand under the Kat Schmoyer name. And so now I have a totally separate Instagram, separate website, separate newsletter list. Like, everything for that was a little bit more differentiated, and it allowed me to speak to my people better so that my voice wasn't getting lost in that translation.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have that distinction, because if you don't, I think it comes back to the one point that I wanted to make in this, is that if you do nothing, talk to one person, right? Like, if you have to talk to one person for each list, or else you're talking to nobody, right? And so whoever you're talking to on that list, make sure that you know what the promise is. Why are they joining? Why do you want them to be on your list? You guys know that you get so many emails in your inboxes if you're anything like me, right? And so it's so important to know why you're taking up space in that person's inbox, and to be really grateful for that space that we're taking up, because it's not just about making a sale. It's about developing that relationship. And so the promise that you're giving them is, I'm going to show you in the process of planning your wedding, these are the things that you should know about. Or if you're a commission-based artist, okay, here are the things that I'm working on, and this is how we can possibly work together in the future. Or this is the way that I get inspired, and I want to tell you more stories about how I paint. So really thinking about what is the promise that you're making as somebody joins your newsletter is really important. And to that point, like, you should never call your newsletter, because that's super boring.
Right.
Or your email list.
Creative here.
Yeah. And like, do you want to be on a newsletter? Probably not. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of things when you're getting started to think about. If you already have a list, hey, Lauren, I just saw her pop in. If you're just starting with a free service like MailChimp or MailerLite is so, so great. When we were starting our list, until we had about I think 1,500 people, it was really important for me to be on a free platform so I could learn how to communicate. And it's totally okay to not really feel like you're selling a lot, or not feeling like you're doing like a whole bunch of like marketing stuff, and just trying out your voice, testing out, doing that email communication, hitting publish on that can be really nerve-wracking. So.
Absolutely. So what are some things in speaking to those who are just getting started with their email list? Maybe they've just been doing it for a few months. So you're not only working to grow, the number of people on that list, but also then trying to figure out how to nurture. What are some like tips and tidbits that you have for somebody in that stage?
Yeah, I think if you're writing consistently, you should always be sending that to your email list, so to speak. I always say that my newsletter and that space, my Sunshine Mail group, is the inner circle. They're the people who get the best information the fastest, right? So they're the only people who get any of the like the discounts if I ever offer them. They're the first people that hear about the things that we're doing behind the scenes. So giving them exclusive access to something that you're working on is like giving that kind of mentality is really important as you're getting started. And as you're getting used to the pattern of sending an email, you don't have to make it complicated, right? I would really encourage you to just post part of your blog. If this is like something that's really difficult for you, post part of your blog into your email and give them a reason for why they should be on this list rather than just going to your blog. So like maybe a fun little snippet or a resource that you want to share with them or something like that. So add a lot of value by just giving them information, but also like encourage them to do, something that is pertinent to your business.
Absolutely. And I love that tip with just sending them directly to blog posts, with, of course, giving them maybe like extra information or like insider here and there. But that way, if you feel paralyzed with, okay, well, you're telling me I need to still be posting on Instagram. I need to keep my blog up because blogging isn't dead. Now I've got to start Pinterest, now email marketing, like what in the world? It can absolutely feel overwhelming to nurture all of these different things. Just take it bite size. And rather than feeling like every single week you have to come up with brand new content for the blog and brand new content for the email list, think about how you can intertwine those two and push people on your list to your blog to get even more of that information. That's going to help you with your SEO. It's going to help you with Google Analytics. That's naturally going to help that aspect of your business as well. And also by popping in, I know Davey and Krista, I feel like do a really good job of this with the Palm Shop. They send emails out about their blog posts. And honestly, in our world that's so busy, I will forget about like, oh, I need to go check this person's blog. But then when I see it in my inbox, I'm like, oh yeah, and this is a really valid post. Like I'm interested in this. I want to go read it. And so that can be really helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the reason why if something like a blog post isn't pushing it out on its own, you have to market it. Right. So it's, you can't just write something and expect people to read it anymore, which is why we turned our blog content into a brand new podcast with the Fueled with Heart, because we were seeing on the Creative Empire that our downloads were so much higher than our page views for our blog posts. We're putting about the same amount of content, same amount of value, but if we can get it into more people's, sphere, then why the heck not? And so we're really trying to push it, and iTunes is doing its job. The RSS feed is doing its job. And then our email is also doing its job of nurturing the people who are coming through.
I love that. That's awesome. So how often would you suggest somebody should be nurturing their list, especially in those early stages if they feel like, well, I know, Emily, you said like you just had your first subscriber. That's amazing. So proud of you. So when you're in that early and you're like, well, I only have like a dozen people, like how often should I email them? What would you say?
Yeah. Be so grateful for those first 12 people. Like, it's such
they're like
fun,
your people.
They're your people. They get you, right? And I always talk to that one person still, like even from the very beginning. And I think the first person who got on my list is still on my list, which is amazing to me. But when you're getting started, I think it's so important to just be consistent, whatever that consistency looks like. So my suggestion, if you are a service-based provider where you don't really have a ton of content to create, I would say maybe once a month, and you tell them that it's once a month, that you can expect it the first Monday of every month or something like that, so that it kind of like becomes part of somebody's routine, kind of like your duty day. It's happening. Right. And if once you get a little bit more established, having weekly is really, really awesome. Here's where it gets a little bit complicated. You probably see people who are sending out multiple emails during the course of a month. And you're like, wait, should I be sending out all these emails? Why am I not doing this? And I want you to know that there's a couple different kinds of emails. So there's like the regular, newsletter content. And I call this Sunshine Mail. So every Wednesday, Sunshine Mail goes out at 8 a.m., that kind of thing. And it's very, very regular. Right. It's very scheduled. But you might send a solo mailer. Right? So say, for example, you're doing something really cool and it's not part of Sunshine Mail and you want to like just showcase it and it's on its own, that's a solo mailer and you can send that out separately. But if you're getting started, don't even worry about it. Just get in the habit of sending out consistent content once a month or once a week. Christina, who is part of she's my co-host with the Creative Empire. She had a really great idea for wedding folks. If you create 52 blog posts in a year, you can send out the same exact email in the next year, because the people that are probably on your list now first of all, they're not going to remember that they read this email blog post, or you can just like, they're going to be dropping off because they're already married. So you can repurpose that content so easily and get in the flow of just scheduling those out ahead of time.
Absolutely. I think, and I'm even just now having to remember and remind myself that repurposing content is okay, because I can think like, oh no, well, I already wrote that. And like, what if somebody like realizes that like this was on the blog 6 months ago and now they don't want to read it anymore? Like, we have to stop thinking like that. We have to stop thinking that other people know our business as innately as we know our business, because like you said, Raina, they either, maybe they forgot that you wrote that. Maybe they never even saw it. Right? Because in our world that is so busy, they weren't looking at the blog on that specific day, or they didn't read that specific email. So don't feel stressed out or overwhelmed with wanting to or not wanting to repurpose. I think repurposing is a great way to utilize content you already have, especially if you know that it's working. If you know that that was like a valuable like post or article.
Yeah, I for sure agree with that. And Betsy says you can do drip emails in MailChimp. And yeah, absolutely. We're talking automations now, and you can just systematize that and have it go out. When somebody, jumps on your newsletter, you can say, hey, here's great content every single week. We're going to be popping into your inbox on Thursday and blah, blah, blah. Just have that expectation ready for them, and you don't have to do any of it. Like, it's all set up for you.
It's amazing. Yes. No, I love that. So I'd love to just speak on for a minute, kind of the difference between, or like the balance between giving away all the things versus when is it okay to start selling?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that is where some of us can get stuck with feeling like, okay, well, I'm being taught like nurture, free, give away all of these things. We constantly are getting asked to join another opt-in or download another freebie or go to another webinar, like that kind. I mean, this is a free thing, right? We're constantly getting bombarded with all the free. So when is it okay to then say like, okay, well, now I do have to make money. This is a business and I need to bring in revenue. So how do I start selling?
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, that's such a good question. So yes, I think you should totally add a lot of value and give so much. But here's the deal, right? That if you have like a pie, I would say like 30% of that pie can go for free. And then the rest of it, if you want to go more in depth, if you want to learn a little bit more, if you want like the gaps filled a little bit more, you have to pay for it. It's okay to ask for that because you are adding so much value. You're getting somebody started in the process. And if they're resourceful enough, they'll go find more blog posts about it. But as a sales tactic, you have to know that you're really just getting them started. You're getting them enough information that they can hopefully make some decisions for themselves, but you don't have to fix everything. And that's why you're selling your services or you're selling a product that will help them further than the free content that you have. Another thing is when you're getting started and you don't know what should be free, what should not be free, I say give it all away. Honestly, here's why. Because you don't know what people are looking for. You don't know what language they're using. And so when you find, if you're giving stuff for free, if you're putting stuff out there, practicing in public, I think what you'll find is that you'll get traction on the things that you don't even expect, right? Like the blog posts that are the most popular of mine are the ones that you're like, wait, really? Is that what you're really excited about?
Right.
Okay. And so you create more content, you create more like valuable offers that are paid after that. And so I don't want you to create an offer that is paid where no one cares about it or no one pays for it because you haven't done your market research. And so once you get those free things out and you're getting traction on them, then you can create something that's more valuable and like, or you can take that thing down and package it for a price.
Absolutely. No, I love that. I think something that we want to jump to G instead of starting at A and like working our way through. And this is where doing something like market research, we tend to forget. And we're like, oh, well, of course people would want to know about X, Y, and Z. So I need to put this together. And I've done this before with my like online shop. I'm like, oh, of course they want to know about this. So I put a template in the shop and it's crickets. No one is interested in it, or one person, you know what I mean? And then you're like, okay, never mind. That did not go over the way that I thought it was going to go over. So I do think I love that analogy of saying, you know what, I'm just going to start by putting all of this out there and seeing what bites, like who's interested in it. What are people the most fired up about that I have to give? And then how can you expand upon that?
Yeah. I love that. And you can validate, we call this pre-validation, that where you ask your audience essentially, like, what are you curious about? What are you excited about? You can do this in so many ways, especially if you don't have an audience to start. One of my favorite ways is to post something on Pinterest and see if it gets traction, because you will see pretty quickly what is getting traction, what's not getting traction, even if you don't have an audience, because the people are pinning from other places, right? And so it's not like Instagram. Instagram is another way you can validate if you get engagement on something, if you're getting answers about something, that's great, as well as your email list or your blog. Like, all of these platforms are a way to get comments back, to get feedback from people. Talking individually one-on-one to people is really great feedback too. Absolutely. So pre-validating something before you create anything is really, really vitally important.
And don't be afraid if you feel like you have a smaller audience and you're like, oh, well, I can't really pre-validate because I have 80 people over here and she's over there with like 8,000. It doesn't matter. In my opinion, it's still pre-validation. So it's knowing who's there right now and who's interested in it. We're not going for those 8,000. They're not right in front of you. We're going for those 80 that are right in front of you.
I agree.
So don't be afraid to, I know I tell a lot of my coaching clients when we're thinking about moving forward with a specific idea, I love the Instagram poll option. And I know that might sound super silly, but it's so convenient. It's so easy. People click through Insta story all the time and it's easy to click back and forth. So if you're sitting there going, okay, well, what do I want to start giving away for free? Like, which way do I want to go? Post some things on Insta story and do it in that poll way. And again, even if you're like, well, I only have like 80 followers, I don't care. You're getting in front of them. You're asking them what they want. And then that can help you figure out, okay, this seems to be, they like this versus this one. I'm going to start going in this direction. So don't be afraid to think simple with some of that stuff too, versus feeling like it has to be this like massive undertaking.
Yeah. And I think we're talking about a whole bunch of things, but at the end of the day, it's really just, you got to do it, right? Yeah. Whether it's posting on Instagram stories and you're like, this is really scary to me. Cool. Just do it. If it's scary to send emails consistently, okay, that's scary, but go ahead and do it, because in a year, it won't feel scary anymore. And it will be like, oh, okay, it's just something, it's part of my repertoire. So talk to your one person and take one action that will help you to get that idea out into the world. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
I love that. So after you've started giving away all of the things for free, right? And you're sending out something consistently, you're really trying to nurture that list consistently. Again, guys, whether it's like in the beginning, pushing more to blog posts while you're kind of getting content up and running for the newsletter, don't be ashamed to do that. It can be a mixture of the two, right? Maybe you just share like a smaller article that's brand new and then push into a blog, have something like that. But what would you say, Raina, for you is like a good rule of thumb of like, how often do you want to then sell? Like when you start selling, is this like, okay, I need to wait 6 months before I ask them for anything, or I need to do 4 newsletters and then it's okay for me to pitch something. Do you have a rule of thumb that you follow or a way that you walk people through that?
Yeah, so it's kind of changed, and we now have a little bit of historical data of like what works for us. But for us, finally, what our cadence is that we can have a very specific sell or making an offer to somebody once out of every 4 emails. So once out of every 4 emails, unless we're in a sales sequence where we're like actually launching something, then we're only just adding value. So 4 emails of value, 1 email of making an offer. And I think it's so important for me to think about it in terms of it's not selling, it's making an offer, because y'all can make the decision as to whether or not you want to buy something. I'm just showing you that I have something available, because if you don't, like my friend and mentor, Nikki L.H. Brown says, you cannot sell a secret. Nobody could buy a secret. So you got to put it out there, let people know that you have something valuable that they can buy. And you have to believe that that thing is something that can help them or make their life more fun or easier, whatever. Like what's the promise? And then make sure that you're leaning into that. I think we get a lot of the heebie-jeebies of the ick factor when we go into this selling mode, because we feel like, oh, they're going to think that I'm trying to sell something. You're like, yeah, you are trying to sell something. It's totally okay, because I believe that I'm trying to help somebody get their business off the ground, or I'm really believing that I want to be able to help them with this X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely. And I know Lauren, you're in here too. We talked about this in her coffee chat, like specifically on selling. So not just in email marketing, just selling in general, and how we all can feel like super icky about that. It really boils down to like, you've built trust with your audience, right? If you go in the very first time you ever email your list and you're hard selling something, you're not building trust. You probably are turning them off. I'll just go right out there and say that. They're probably going to say, like, I don't know if I'm going to open this one again, or I'm going to go ahead and unsubscribe because this isn't what I want to have in my inbox all the time. But if you're true, like in those, like if you do like the 4 email, and Raina is very spot on, something she said that I want you guys to remember, that's what she's found works for her, like with her team, right? And with her statistics. So as you get into this within the next 6 months, you will start to see what's working and what's not working for you. But I think that 4 email is a good guideline to kind of start with, because you want to give enough validation and enough information that they trust you. So then when you say like, hey, now I have this product, or maybe it's an affiliate and you're like, hey, now my friend has this thing and I'm pushing, like I want my people to go join over there. They feel comfortable, they feel accepted, and they understand that I'm not going to steer them wrong. And I really just want to help them with whatever it is that I'm offering. Just like Raina said, like it's that offer. It's not saying like, swipe now or get off my list and like we can't hang out anymore on Sunshine Mail. It's like, hey guys, this is what's next. Like this is what I'm offering you. I think this might be really beneficial for you because of X, Y, and Z. I hope you'll join me. That sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, just making it really clear to them. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention is that don't do the 4-to-1 rule if you're sending once a month. Like don't wait 4 months to send an email like that. But I think that it's okay if you're doing it once a month, you're making an offer, you're showing them what you have to offer. Totally cool. Do it. I lost my other train of thought. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. That's a good point. We should definitely make sure you guys are waiting like 6 months in between to sell things. No.
Oh, another thing I wanted to say, and I think you do this too, is that a lot of people scroll and skim emails. We call them the bottom scrollers. So we just got like, it's cool that you skim our emails. Thank you for checking out the pretty images, but here's what I want you to know. Bottom line it for them.
Absolutely.
Let them know what they missed by not reading the whole email. If you have a very specific call to action, give them that. And what I mean by call to action is go read this blog post, or go sign up for this cool webinar I'm doing, or make sure you check out this brand new thing that I did. Whatever the thing that you want them to do, put it at the bottom. And sometimes that PS can be super beneficial for a sale. You can be like, hey, I have this thing that I want to sell to you, and I think it's going to do X, Y, and Z for you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm a big fan of the PSs. Sometimes I'll even have PS and PPS because I know that's where people are going. So I'm like, fine, I'll write it all up here, but I know where you're at and I need you to get this information.
Yeah, for sure.
We've gotten a couple questions and I want to like just start like working through some of those if that's okay.
Oh, there they are. Yeah, for sure.
Emily asks, is there a day of the week that seems to convert best, open and click-through rates?
Yeah. So Monday is awful. Friday is awful. Yeah. So Monday's awful, Friday's awful, and then everywhere in the middle is kind of okay. So
yeah, Mondays and Fridays are the worst days. And I used to, which is funny because my weekly emails used to be on Fridays. And then I started noticing a decrease in my open and my click-through rates. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to switch to a different day. So try that out too. If you're like, okay, I'm going to start with Tuesdays then, because they said like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is where it's at. And you feel like the open or the click-through is a little low, give it maybe like 2 months, like give it, well, depending on how many you're sending. If you're only sending once a month, I would give it like 3 or 4 emails so that you can really start to compare that before you jump ship and like change days. You can definitely test that out for your own audience and see.
Yeah. I want to talk about welcome sequences too, even if you're sending stuff just once a month. So let's table that conversation. But I want to answer. Okay. So Emily says, what's the best day? For us, we have tested different days. So just like try it out, like Kat said, and figure out what works for your audience. You can even poll them on Insta stories and be like, which day do you want to get your email? And they'll be like, I don't care, or they'll tell you.
Right? Absolutely. And even think through, when are your people at their inbox? So for instance, for me, when I'm speaking to my side hustlers, they're probably like, they might be popping in like during the day when they're working at their 9 to 5, but they're probably more so going to read it at like that 8 p.m. So I know for me, like when I'm talking specifically to them, that's where I want to go. I want to go for a later evening email versus 8 a.m. When they're just starting their workday at their full-time job. So even thinking through who your audience is can be helpful.
Yeah, love that.
Okay, awesome. More questions. Let's see. Betsy asked, is there a difference between a hard sell and I have this? Because I basically send emails out to say what I have.
Yeah. So that's a really great question. And I think that we have to think about ourselves in terms of, or our offers in terms of value add. So even if you're selling and showing what you have, how is it that this person who's reading your email is going to gain value from that? So are they on your list because they're really excited about your art process? Are they excited about, the new things that they have coming up? Maybe they can't even afford what you have, your commission-based work, and they're really excited to get something from your shop and you don't have a shop yet, right? So like getting that feedback from them and adding value in that way can be very, very beneficial. And I think you can, for you, Betsy, you can be like, hey, I have this brand new thing that I'm sending to a client. This is the story that they wanted to, whatever. I'm just kind of making this up right now, but off the cuff. And then you can say, like, if you're interested, if you're curious about the process that I take for my commissions, here's a blog post that I created, or here's a video that I created about, how it works and how you might, do one in the future too, or something like that. So yeah, it's a sell, but the call to action is go ahead and check out my process so that we can work together in the future. So to me, that doesn't feel like a hard sell.
No. Yeah. I hope that answers your question, Betsy. Let us know if we can elaborate on that at all. Yeah. And then Marnie asked, is there a strategy to help organize all the thoughts, content, offers for newsletters, i.e. like Instagram content buckets into categories, a way to cover all the things you need to share with your audience? That's a great question, Marnie.
Oh my God. I love this question, Marnie, so much. Okay. So I call this the verticals method. I don't know if any of y'all have heard me talk about it, but I've talked about it on the Creative Empire, and we'll definitely have episodes on it on Fueled with Heart. But is it okay if I share a resource?
Yes, absolutely.
It's got an opt-in. So it's rainandco.com/verticals. And this resource is a Trello board where you can organize your verticals. So a vertical in like newspaper times, like it's like the front page, the sports section, the business section, the different categories in the newspaper. So for your business, you might have this particular topic you talk about. You might have this particular topic you talk about. And you want to differentiate. Thank you. You want to differentiate what you can think about it in terms of a content bucket or category. It doesn't really matter to me. I just call them verticals because to me, they're like in a column. And it's the way that I break down a funnel, right? Like here's all the content that we created and here's where it leads to. Here's the content that, draws them into the offer that I want to make. So it simplifies the funnel, simplifies like all the craziness that you hear about with regards to funnel, and just say, here are the things that I talk about. And then, so let me just break it down visually. So the very, very top is the free content, all the blog posts you create, the Instagram posts you create, the things that you're talking about, right? And then under that is the free with opt-in. So something like this, where I'm sharing a vertical for you and the Trello board, maybe like an ebook or a training, whatever it is that you want to do. So they have to trade their email address for that thing that you have. And then moving down that, you get to share some what am I trying to say? Like a low cost offer. So it's a very hands-off thing that you can offer. And then a little bit further down is more high touch. So a medium offer and a more expensive offer, if you have that. And if you don't, it's totally okay. You can just go from, the free content to your high priced offer if that's what you want to do too. But basically the reason why I wanted to do it this way is because when you start creating a lot of content, Marnie, like you do with your blog and stuff like that, you want to make sure that you know what you've already talked about and leverage that content and connect that content to the piece of new content that you're creating. One, that's great for SEO. Two, it's great for your audience because you're adding value by creating those bridges. Does that make sense? So once you have this organized in a Trello board, it's like, oh, I wrote a blog post about this thing that connects directly to this. Here's the link. And I don't have to go searching or hunting for it.
Absolutely. And then you don't feel like you're as much of a content creating machine. We're already creating enough as is, but then to also say, okay, well, wait, now I need to have a call to action on every blog post, or I need to be telling them something new new in every single newsletter. No, you can utilize things that you've already, again, repurposing that content. And if you have this vertical system, I love Trello. So I love that this is in Trello. It like makes my heart so happy. If you have this system in place, you can, see those connections and be able to serve your audience better and take that pain point off of you of constantly feeling like you have to create new stuff.
Totally. Yeah. Please don't create like hundreds and hundreds of opt-ins because that just makes it crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
That's
right. We answered those questions.
Marnie,
does that make sense?
Yeah, let us know, Marnie. And then Jess, I see yours popped over here in the chat. I've noticed a lot of folks will click on my opt-ins, but once they see that they have to subscribe to get the download, they exit out. Any advice on getting those folks to click and actually opt in?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally up to, it's kind of like making an offer, right? Like it's the same thing. You're going to get people who are going to see your landing page and don't opt in. Right now, we're running a giveaway over at Fueled with Heart. And you can check this out, but like if you go to fueledwithheart.com, we have a landing page for our giveaway. And we have like an 18% conversion rate right now because they have to opt in, like to say that they did it. 18% feels super low to me because our conversions are usually a lot higher. But here's the thing, it's a barrier to entry. But what you'll find is that if you keep putting it out there to more people, the right people will land inside your list. Right. So those 18% of the people who landed on that page are the right people to be on my list. They're the most qualified. They actually took the steps. So we're asking them to go review on our iTunes and then come back and opt in. Cool. Right. Like those people are so honest and they're saying, yeah, I'm not there yet. I haven't left a review, so I can't opt in. So it's okay to have the barrier to entry. Go ahead and talk about that freebie, continue to promote it, talk about it on Insta stories, talk about it on, whatever platforms you got.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other suggestions on that one, Kat?
No, because, Jess and I know each other well. So she's one of my coaching girls. So, I think just in general though, with like, if you feel like you've done all of those things and you still feel like you've hit a brick wall, it can be sometimes like starting from scratch. I'm not saying, Jess, that that's what you need to do. So please don't do that. But just in general, there can be, just like we said, sometimes we put content out there and we're like, why don't people want this? And then we throw something else out there and they're like going at it like crazy. And we're like, okay, never mind. This is what they're looking for, not this. So sometimes you do just have to like throw some things out there, do that market research, right? On these free things, put it out and see who's going to bite the most. So don't be afraid to try something new as well.
Yeah. And it's funny because just that question actually goes back to what you were saying in terms of the validation. If you know that people aren't opting in for this, please don't create something for it. Right.
Like, yeah. Don't create a passive income product.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So like, when people are starting to bite, people are starting to resonate with that message you have, then you're onto something.
I love that. Yeah. So we had one more question pop in, and then I want you to talk about welcome sequences because I know.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So Kayla asked, should I categorize my audience? For example, I photograph weddings and newborns. Should I have 2 different opt-ins and be sending different content to each? So I think she's getting more into like segmentation.
Yeah. Can you tell me what platform you're on? That would be really helpful.
Yeah, Kayla, let us know.
Yeah, for sure you should be segmenting your audiences. And depending on the platform, it's a little bit easier or more difficult. So on MailChimp, what happens is that you have to create totally separate lists. And if people are on, like, even if they're the same, if they're on the same list and they have the same email, you will have a duplicate. So like, say for instance, my email is on one list and my email is on, like the same email is on a separate list. It counts as 2 separate people, even though I'm the same person. So you'll have to clean out one list and move people over.
So that's because Kayla's on MailChimp and she's the one who asked the question.
Yeah. So MailChimp is a little bit tricky that way. So just keep an eyeball out for that. ConvertKit makes it easier that it doesn't double count those people. Okay. So let me reread the question. So our category is my audience. Photograph weddings and newborns. Yeah. So we're assuming that if they are newborns, they're probably not in the wedding category anymore, right? And so you'll want to clean out that list. And while you're on MailChimp, your list is probably small enough, hopefully, that you can manually clean it out. Or you can email that weddings list and say, hey, if you're already married or they're already married, you can take them off. Right? Like you don't have to pay for those people anymore.
Right.
So I would just make sure that those are separate. Should I have 2 different opt-ins and be sending different content to each? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, like what Kat was talking about.
Like if you want to talk to each, again, like don't feel like just because you have an audience that you've built part of an audience that you have to talk to them through your newsletter list. Like I'll preach that every day just because I am like the golden child for that. I have an audience for brides. I don't talk to them via my email list. Yes, I'm sure I know some of my brides are on my email list because I'll respond to things and they're adorable. But I'm not talking about weddings. I'm not talking about anything to do with bride or honeymoon or anything like that. So really think through, like, if you're like, you know what, I want to talk to newborn because that's where you see like passive products like down the road, and you don't want to address weddings at all, then don't feel like you have to, because then it's just going to be exhausting for you putting all this time and energy into something when you don't see the longevity that you specifically want in your business.
Preach. Yep.
Love it. Okay, welcome sequences. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
So a welcome sequence is a really easy, simple automation that you set up for when somebody jumps onto your list. It's basically like a doormat when you walk into somebody's home, or like the first room that you walk into. It gives you like that instant connection as soon as they walk through, right? You want to make sure that you give them whatever it is that you promise them. So if you're opting into the verticals, you're getting a verticals checklist and Trello board. And then you're going to get a welcome sequence with a couple different emails. And this is how I would set it up for you if you were brand new to this. So I would really introduce yourself, what it is that you do, and why somebody should stick around. There's so many people that they could be following, have gratitude for the fact that they are there. Right. And then wait a couple days, or, just check out how many days you want to space them. But like maybe 2 days after that first email, you can send them an email with the kind of work that you do. So maybe it's a past blog post, a past training you've done, your past commission work, whatever it is that you want to showcase. And it's okay to have a PS or some kind of a not a hard sell, but just like, hey, here's how you might work with me kind of thing. Just pop it in there. It's not like, hey, you've got to buy this or you can't be here. Right. Just mention it because maybe they're already interested because they're a warm lead coming through. And then further on down, I like to have an email that kind of represents why you're legit. So this is my street cred email. And that could be, hey, I was featured on this, or I've talked to these people, or this is why, you should pay attention to me. So any kind of links to something else that you've created or any value add that you've been able to establish elsewhere, you should definitely do that. And at the end, you can let them know, hey, here's what's going to happen next. You're going to get an email monthly from me on the first Monday of each month, or probably Tuesday, not Monday. Or you're going to get an, weekly sunshine mail on Wednesday mornings, and keep an eyeball out for that. This is how Marie Forleo does it, right? Like if you think about her, Q&A Tuesday happens every single Tuesday. You're getting an email from her. She's going to pop into your Facebook feed. So just think about it in terms of that. When you're starting with these email things, we feel like we're small businesses and it doesn't really matter. Marie Forleo can do it. You can do it too.
Absolutely. I love that. I think a welcome sequence is a great way to nurture your list from the very beginning. And just like Raina is saying, the wonderful thing about it is it's automated. So it's a one time you're sitting down and writing that content one time, you're scheduling it out. So then every person who comes through is automatically filtering through, and you don't have to be stressing about, recreating that every single time. Totally. So I love that.
Yep.
Awesome. This was so great, Raina. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any other questions as we're just kind of like wrapping up? You guys asked some really, really good ones.
Yeah.
So let us know if there's anything else that popped in. And then Raina, I'll pop in the verticals again down here.
Okay. I was just going to mention too, something that we're trying right now. And for people who might have a more established list, maybe Jess, this is something for you. If you have clients who can stay active and live on your list, cultivate those people. Cultivate the people who've already bought from you. Give them special offers. Give them special sneak peeks. Make them the target of your target because they're already people who have purchased, right? And so make it super, super generous for them, whether it's a discount or right now we're offering a retreat just for our past clients. I don't know, Kat, if you got that email. It might not make sense for you because you're a little bit busy with life. But we created a specific retreat just for our past clients, and it's not open to the public. And so you can do stuff like that for your list and offer special deals or special, incentives. So yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, Emily, I see yours. Okay, girl, we'll hang tight for a minute while you're typing. I love that. No, I think that's great. And it kind of goes back to what you said in the very beginning about these are your sunshine mailers, they're your VIPs. Like they get information, like insider details before anybody else, whether that's the discount code or just having the fact that you're popping in every week with these reminders, with these updates, like they have access before anybody else.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just like practicing making those offers might feel really scary and hard, but like it's okay to piss somebody off, right? Like that might not land very well for people, but it's okay for somebody to unsubscribe from you because that just means that they're not part of your tribe and they're never going to buy from you.
Absolutely.
So it's okay that people jump off. It's okay for you to make that offer and for them to not like that because they're not your tribe.
Yes, 100%. Emily, we'll hang tight for a minute. I know you said, oh, wait, here we go. Ask a question. Let's see.
Yay.
Okay. My ideal copywriting client is a CEO, president of a company that makes $1 million in sales annually. Many times they would be in the corporate sphere. Good thing I know the corporate lingo. Any tips on how to attract those types of clients to the email list?
Yeah, I'm curious. Are they corporate clients or are they business owners that have $1 million businesses? Because there's plenty of those too. So in terms of how to attract those types of clients to the email list, my guess is that they're actually not reading emails.
They're the CEO.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to be because they are very busy. They have a secretary or assistant who's just like crossing out and like deleting all their emails.
Right.
And so you might have to find a different marketing tactic to connect with these people. So one of the things that I love, let me just reference a podcast episode that it has not yet launched, but keep an eyeball out for it. We interviewed Jordan Gill of the Collada Group for the podcast or the Creative Empire podcast. And she works with people in like these intensive formats with CEOs. And she found that email marketing and social media marketing does not work for her, even though her people are more creative and they're online, whatever. She has a marketing line item in her business for attending events, because she knows that email marketing doesn't work for them. And so the follow-up can be an email, but honestly, she found that attending these events, going to these conferences, going to these workshops is the best way to start getting in the circles and getting in LinkedIn. So if you're really going corporate, be on LinkedIn and put heavy emphasis on that part of social rather than the other like Instagrams and
Absolutely. Stuff. That's great advice though for anybody, guys. Like know where your audience is. So know that, like, for instance, one of my friends is a birth photographer. So she knows that like her moms, they don't have time for emails either. You know what I mean? So they're actually more on Facebook and doing different Facebook groups and things like that. So she just knows where her people are and where to put all of her energy and time into marketing. So understand where your people are will save you, I feel like, such a big headache in the long run. And you feel like you're spinning your wheels with all of these other marketing.
And Emily, I was just going to say too, one thing that I found to be super valuable is to send pitches to people who clearly have a need for you. So you might stalk some websites who are, around that $1 million mark, which might be a little bit hard to siphon out, but to find these people and say, hey, I just wanted to send you a couple suggestions about X, Y, and Z and add value that way. Some people might think that it's like really weird that you did that, but for a lot of people, it might feel super valuable. And I've found that photographers have had a really good success rate with pitching corporate clients. If they're like maybe a brand photographer or something, they say, hey, how about photos like this? And I would love to be able to shoot them for you. And they like add a lot of value because they see the potential of that client or something like that.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. I love that.